Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting a new playlist in which we're going to be doing different LeetCode problems. So today we're going to be starting with an easy problem, which is the Fizz buzz problem. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to read and understand the problem before we get started with any code. So we're going to read the problem, which says, given an integer n, return a string array answer, one indexed, where answer I, that means answer is going to be an array, and at index I, it's going to be fizz buzz if I is divisible by 3 and 5. It's going to be fizz if I is divisible by 3 only. It's going to be buzz if I is divisible by 5 only. And finally, if it's not divisible by 3 and it's not divisible by 5, we're just simply going to have I itself. So what is our plan here? First, we're going to have an array or a list called answer, which we're going to be returning at the end. And in that array, initially it's going to be empty, and we're going to fill it up with the numbers starting from 1, since it says 1 indexed. So we're going to start from 1, and we're going to go all the way up to n, including n. So to do that, we could use the range function together with the for loop. And inside that for loop, we're going to use if statements and else if or elif statements to check if I is divisible by 3 or 5. So now that we have a plan, we can get into the code. So first, we're going to have our answer array, which is initially going to be empty. Then we're going to have a loop. We're going to be using a for loop. So we're going to say for I in range. So we want I to be from 1 all the way up to n, which is going to be given to us. So we can look at the examples here. So for example, here n is 3. So our output should be 1, 2, and instead of 3, we're going to have fizz because 3 is divisible by 3. In the second example, we have n equal to 5. Then we're going to have the numbers 1 to 5, and it's going to replace 3 and 5 by fizz and buzz. And we'll also have fizz buzz when the number, for example here 15, is divisible by both 3 and 5. So in our range function, we're going to start from 1 all the way up to n. But here we know that the range function does not include the final number we give it, so we need to have n plus 1. So it's going to go from 1 to 3. For example, if we have n equals to 3, it's going to go from 1 to 3 because range 1 comma 4 means 1, 2, 3. That means 4 is not included. So once we have those numbers, we're going to start our for loop. So the first thing we're going to check for is if the number I is divisible by 3 or 5. So in this case, we're going to be using the modulo operator. So if a number divided by another number gives a remainder of 0, that means that number is divisible. So for example, 3 divided by 3 has remainder 0, that means 3 is divisible by 3. So we're going to check if I modulo 3 is equal to 0, that means it has no remainder, which means it's divisible. And we're going to use the AND keyword because we have two conditions here. We're going to also check if I modulo 5 is also equal to 0. That means the number is divisible by 3 and by 5. In this case, we want to append fizz buzz to answer. That means we're going to have answer dot append fizz buzz. And next, we're going to have another elif statement. So we're going to have elif I is divisible by 3. This is going to check if I is divisible by 3 only and not divisible by 5, in which case we're going to append fizz. And we'll also check if I is only divisible by 5 and not divisible by 3, in which case we're going to append buzz. And finally, we're going to see if none of these conditions are true. That means if I is not divisible by 3 or by 5. So we're going to use an else statement and in this case we want to just append I. But when we see our output here, we can't just append I because our output has strings. So here 1 is in a string form, 2 is in a string form. So when we append I, we need to cast it, or we need to convert it into a string. So in our else block, we're going to say answer.append I, but we want to cast it to a string, so we're going to use str, and in parentheses we're going to put in I, which should cast our integer into a string. So this is our solution. And finally, we want to return answer, which is the array that contains our solution, and we're going to hit run to see if it passes the test cases. As you can see, it passes all 3 test cases. So the test cases are when n is equal to 3, when n is equals to 5, and finally when n is equals to 15. But these are only 3 test cases, but when we submit our code, it's going to get compared to hundreds of test cases. So we need to be sure that our code works for all test cases. So once we've run it and it's passed the given test cases, we're going to hit on submit. As you can see, it tells us our solution has been accepted. That means our solution works for all test cases. So this has been the FizzBuzz problem on LeetCode. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily programming videos.